back to the Women's Growth Series. I'm Laura Brandao, the president of AFR, and today I am joined by the fabulous Mo Hernandez, manager and mortgage loan officer at Arizona Lending Specialists. Mo, thank you so much for being with us today and for giving us your insight and perspective on surviving the purchase market. All right. We know the purchase market has been very unique over this last 18 months or so, and has been especially interesting in the Arizona market. So what have you done to adjust to the current market conditions?
Thank you, Laura, for having me and AIME and everybody else involved in this wonderful project. So let me say thank you first. You're right. Arizona is such a crazy market to be in. Honestly, the best thing that I've done to prepare myself is to just be ready to pivot at a moment's notice. I think last year, with how the climate changed with the severity of the coronavirus, we really had to understand where we stood in our businesses, where we wanted to be in our businesses, and how we could get there. We had to lean on lenders who were changing their products, who were changing, everything from rate to LTVs, et cetera, et cetera. We really just had to go and with the flow. So for us here in Arizona, we are experiencing such a shortage of homes that we really have to get creative. And by creative, I mean allowing borrowers to leverage their current position to be able to win that bid. Case in point, if they qualify for down payment assistance, being able to use that to help them cover any kind of appraisal gap with their own money, having the leverage also with customers who are upgrading their home or downsizing their home and using their proceeds from the sale of their home into, again, just trying to get creative with their offers. They'll pay the other side's, transactional fees. They'll pay, extra, anything really just to try to give them that foot in the door. So is that anything different than what other people are doing? Sure. But I think the best part of the seat that I have at this table is that not only am I able to help create those creative solutions, but by the fact that I have such competitive interest rates and more so less fees, it just really gives them more power to each dollar that they bring to the table.
And that is such great points, right? It's education. It's knowing all the different program options. It's getting the best rate, but also the biggest credit, right? So that you can also use that credit as part of the way that you can provide additional closing cost coverage. So like you said, if there is an appraisal gap in value, they can use that extra savings that they have. So Mo, let me ask you, right? We know that it's been a struggle for some of the families because they've gone through this fatigue of, looking for a home and feeling defeated almost. So please share, what do you do to keep these families' spirits lifted and keep them engaged in the process to make sure that they get that home that's perfect for their family?
That's such a great point that I'm happy to share with you. I am a big believer in destiny and I have really big faith. So every time that I get to help a family understand what power they have, whether they're renters, buying for the first time or they're buying their 10th home, it never gets easier. It's still stressful. It's still so many different puzzle pieces that have to come together all at the same time in order for things to work. So I always lead with this verse with my customers. I tell them, you're in the driver's seat. I've got the map, but you're driving. We'll go as fast or as slow as you want, and we'll take as many pit stops as needed. I have a story that I like to share. I have some customers that sold their home last November because the market was crazy. The sellers at that time and still today are not very keen on accepting offers with a contingency.
Right.
So these borrowers got tired of, being beat out. They were coming in highest and best. et cetera, offering, you know, zero concessions, but they had the contingency. So they sold their home and they sold it fast. They moved into a rental in December. They just purchased their home last month. It took them 6 months. And you really have to develop such a relationship with these borrowers because they're trusting you. You are literally a part of that journey for them. And in order for them to continue to have faith, they have to trust you. And you have to show them, listen, we lost out because XYZ. I have really good working relationships with the realtors too. So we'll follow up. We will follow up on these homes that we lost out on because I want to know why we lost, you know? And it's always that point of being able to say, look, it went for cash, or they waived their inspections. You know, there's certain things that certain borrowers are just not comfortable doing. And you have to respect their space. You have to get them to trust you. And honestly, it's just day in and day out communication and showing them that you care. They're not just a number. They're not just another file. It's a family. And like I said, whether it's their first time or their 10th time, it's never the same experience. So I really truly feel that giving them that faith and that space to get frustrated and yell and cry and you yell with them, but really creating that community and that space for them to just feel like you believe in them and you know that they're going to get that house. So for these customers who finally got into their home in July, we all cried. Like we literally cried because we couldn't believe it was finally happening. And, you know, just a test of faith, a test of everything, relationship, trust, everything just fell into place. And it ended up being a cheaper home than they had been looking for before. It had a swimming pool. It had everything that they needed. The timing was right. And we do have to, you know, we have to step out of our professional box. You know, it's numbers. Yes, it's scenarios. Yes, it's, you know, how much do you need to close? But there's the human aspect too. We have to talk about, what is this going to do to your family life? You know, how far away are you going to be from work? What are you willing to give up to get this house? There's always a sacrifice. So I'm glad that you touched on that because I've always wanted to know.
Well, you know, Mo, it really is such an important aspect of this process because, you know, I hate to use this analogy, but I really do think about it. It's almost like when a woman is trying to get pregnant and every month they try to conceive.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And the emotion that happens. And I picture some of these families that are out there that they walk in the door and in their mind, they envision their children playing in the backyard, or they envision their daughter wearing her wedding dress, taking a picture by the front window. Yeah. And then they lose out on that offer. And it's crushing. It's crushing. So Mo, thank you for explaining how you go through this emotional journey with them, because they're not a number, they're not a transaction, they are a family that you do have to give them that faith, because it will happen when it's time and when it's right, and it will all happen, but it has to happen with the right mortgage professional guiding them through it. And that's why AIME and brokers and the wonderful people of this group guiding them through this. And I love what you said about working with the realtor, because you're right. Don't just, okay, we lost the offer. No. Why did we lose the offer?
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, you have to. And luckily, you know, having the longevity that I've had here in this market, and honestly, the ability to pick up the phone, I'm not shy. I can be, but technically I'm really not. So, you know, I have no problem. I have great, I think that that's such a great skill that I have, that I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to know the truth.
Right.
And if the truth will help my customers really piece together why we got to know, then at least they're not feeling like I'm not doing my job or that the realtor's not doing their job, because there's so many different people that are involved. It's easy. It's easy to pass the buck and say, oh, it's because of this,
Yeah.
or oh, it's because of that. And I really truly feel that that moment and that transaction itself really helped me build a stronger faith
Yeah.
and a stronger just really confirming that as much as I do for each family, it is the right thing to do. I feel like sometimes I can get overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, my phone starts ringing at 5:30 in the morning and doesn't stop till 10 o'clock at night sometimes. And I do get overwhelmed. And just like our buyers, they get burned out.
Yeah.
They get so defeated. And I think that when we can share that we're real and that we're equally as frustrated, we're equally as sad, and then we can rejoice together. Oh, I love it. I
That's
think
what it's all about.
yes.
That's what it's all about. Okay, so now let's keep going through our journey. Okay, so now we've got this family that has won the offer and it's the perfect home for them. Did you do anything different in your system or process flow to really, because now we know the timelines are tight. We
Oof.
know that we have no time to spare.
Right.
So have you done anything within this market to kind of modify what you were doing internally to get these closed out and meet those deadlines and to escrow and no issues?
Right. Yes. And I think that all of us are feeling that right now in this industry. We have to be as proactive as possible to not have so many things come at us that we have to react to. So, really, the best thing about being in this seat, in the broker seat, is just having the amount of support with all of our wholesale lenders and really understanding what their systems are and being able to know, can I lock before I submit? Can I send out the CD, before the appraisal comes in? How soon can we get that appraisal ordered? And that is something that I have had to really step into that I wasn't into before. Is a lot of times I'm finding myself, if I'm in a time crunch for that close of escrow time frame, I am literally ordering the appraisal and paying for it myself.
Wow.
Let me say that not too loud, but I am, because I can't wait for disclosures to go out. It's really just understanding the flow, understanding where we stand with each process, because not every borrower fits into every lender's portal. And I have to do what's right for the borrower. So if that means that I am having to do things, in a specific manner that isn't the status quo per that program, then I'm paying for the appraisal because I got to get that puppy ordered immediately. So yeah, in that case there, we had a 30-day close in this market, where here in Pima County, I'm looking at 4 to 5 weeks sometimes. So that appraisal is paid for immediately. And then, a reimbursement or, whatever the case may be towards the end at the closing table. But that is probably one of the biggest game changers for me, is that I am, with my customers, we are basically, in some cases, even trying to see if we get an appraisal waiver. The market is so hot. The values and all of the transactions that are available through our automated systems, we have been very fortunate to get plenty of appraisal waivers. But in those instances when we don't, we gotta, we have to be on the offensive immediately. What can we do? We definitely pre-underwrite our files as much as possible. We've been in the industry for so long that we kind of already know what those underwriters are going to want. Why doesn't this match? And what happened here in this page of this bank statement? So, we really go through a lot of work with our borrowers to get them into that position that when we go, and it is just straightforward, no looking back.
That's a good point. And you're right. I mean, number one, the point about knowing all of the lenders that you're working with, systems and process flows and timings, you can't take it for chance, right? You can't be off even by a little, because it could cost that family the transaction. We know right now what's happening is the minute that those contracts are over, there's a cash buyer behind it or
Oh,
someone else that's offering more. And just imagine how traumatic that is for the
yes.
family. So we have to be educated. You have to know what each different lender requires and why
Right.
and when and your timing. And I love that you're being extremely proactive. And here's another point. I was speaking to someone the other day, and we were speaking about communication with the families. And somebody was speaking about how you have to communicate the way they want to receive it.
Yes.
Meaning, if someone doesn't like using email, don't send them a bunch of emails, because that's not how they like to communicate. What are
Yep.
your thoughts with that, and what have you seen in this market?
It's so true. In this day and age, everyone is so used to text messages because it's instant gratification. And that is something that we take, into consideration when we're speaking to our borrowers. We ask, can I contact you during business hours? Are you
Right.
able to really speak, while you're working? What's the best way for me to contact you? Especially when we have even a married couple, or, just two people who are purchasing a home together. There's always going to be one who's like the leader, so you have to understand those dynamics, even language barriers. Do they need, if especially here in Arizona, we have such a high Spanish speaking market that a lot of times we're finding ourselves needing to do in-person visits because we send everything out, but we're going to sit down together and we're going to go over everything because everything's in English, but I'm going to explain everything to you in Spanish. So yeah, absolutely. You definitely need to know how to work that file and how to best serve that family.
100%. Have you instituted any new technology, over this period of time that has helped you?
Oh my gosh, yes. So when we started and we talked about Corona and how it really made everybody pivot, I think the tech stack, and let me be very honest with you, I never used that word before 2020. I'm going to be 100% honest and tell you that if somebody asked me in 2019 or even before what my tech stack was, I would have been like, what are you talking about? It's true, but the tech talk has been front and center for me because things change so quickly and things can change so fast that really, no matter how small or how big your team is, you really do need to rely on software that can help you. So yes, 100%. I even made a list because it's something that is so important for me to share because I feel like there's so many brokers. And then, here we are in the Women's Growth Series, so many women who are really trying to balance
Yeah.
mom life, corporate life, real life, that sometimes it's good to hear, what other people are doing. And everything that I'm about to share has come from my experiences, me leaning in, me listening, and me learning from other people. So for my point of sale, my loan operating system, I use Arrive. I also use Tino for my rate watch. I use Trello for processing. I use Loancraft to help me with self-employed borrowers because sometimes I don't have the time to really, spend trying to dive into those documents. So I just signed up with them and they've been amazing so far and really just making it faster because I think at the end of the day, everybody just wants to know. So instead of waiting for me, hey, let's bring in this service to help us. I also do leadership and my training through 2020 Vision. They have an amazing website. I use Calendly, which just started last year. I let people pre-schedule with me. I'm available pretty much all the time, and I will block out obviously when I have other events or family things or whatever. But I really try to make myself available as often as possible. One of my favorite things about Calendly is that it does an automatic follow-up email. And I love getting the feedback from my customers that say, thank you for taking the time, or thank you for seeing me after hours. It's just another way to touch that, that relationship. I use HomeBot for future leads and to post with my post-close clients. I use Loom for screen recordings. I use MailChimp as a CRM, but I also use Facebook and Instagram as a CRM. I use Canva for marketing and design. I use all of my lenders' portals like AFR for all of their white paper marketing, amazing stuff that we could just plug and play. And the biggest part of my tech stack is the online communities that I am a part of. Whether I'm the learner or I'm the leader, I still think they're so important to just be able to plug in and be able to get that. So that, in a nutshell, is my tech stack.
Is that crazy, right? Well, like you said, like if we were back in 2019 or 18, like we said, you'd probably be like, well, I've got a CRM and I use the lenders, you know, for their portals. And
Right.
now look at from everything from scheduling your appointments to your marketing to your CRM to your I mean everything, and HomeBot afterwards. I mean all of this from start to finish. Who would have thought?
Oh,
But
God.
that's where we are, right?
Yeah.
That's you have to have things like those in place, because it's not a question of do you need it, it is you need it. And
Yeah.
you need to always be listening and trying different things to, you know, like the community, obviously, you know, you're always hearing different things coming up. You want to ask questions, you want to learn, and you want to understand and see if it works best for your business. So that's amazing.
Yes. I'm saying I literally, I have to write it down because it's such a question that's asked so much in our groups. And it's easy for me to just copy and paste it. Like, you know, I get to talk to so many different people, and it's also good for me to share with them and say, hey, this is what I'm using. What are you using? So yes, I literally had to write it down because I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, but implementation, not being afraid of it, allowing it to help me, it's definitely something that I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, and I think that's a mindset, right? I think years ago we were always nervous about trying new things because we were like, "Oh, I don't have the time to learn it, you know, I'm going to be overwhelmed." But I think being open to accepting the fact that this is something that's going to help me, this is something that's going to improve the experience, or it's going to save me time, it's going to make us more efficient. As long as you go into it with that mindset and know you don't have to be a computer programmer. No one's saying go and get your degree. You know, now it's just being open, asking questions, and trying, using it, right? Actually utilizing.
Just give it a shot. Don't be afraid, really, you know, and see what happens, and then recalibrate and figure something else out.
That is exactly right. I love it. All right. You are amazing. I want you to give the final, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give for everyone out there, of all the brokers, of most important thing to make it through this crazy purchase market?
So, as with my team, I think that we're constantly talking about the future. You have to really look at the forward market. You have to anticipate the seasons. So everything that we're closing right now in Q3, we've been working on since Q2, building relationships, you know, scouting, doing everything, marketing, everything, events, emails, social media, etc. It's all included. So really the biggest thing that I would recommend for anybody, again, whether you're day one or day 1000, it doesn't matter. We have to grind it every single day. And we will only know what goals we're going to hit if we can map it out. So what are we doing? So really, it's really just either getting a wonderful coaching system or leaning into fellow colleagues, you know, who are on the same path as you, even realtors who are on the same path as you, just to really understand where you want to go and what you're going to do to get there. And it is a daily grind, and it can be exhausting, so exhausting. I'm not gonna lie, like there's days that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so tired. But just like that, you know, that jubilation, that rejoice moment, you know, being able to celebrate with that family, that's what we do. So definitely I think that, you know, understanding that we're in Q3 right now, we already have to be looking at Q4 for 2021, even into Q1 for 2022. What are we doing? What is our plan? I think a lot of times we overthink what to post on social media. And I learned, thankfully, when I visited, when I attended Fuse in 2019, and we had Gary Vee on the stage, and he basically told us, just do it.
Do it.
don't think about it.
Nope.
The more we think about it, the more we're already criticizing and judging ourselves. And
Correct.
who cares if nobody engages with us? At least we did it. And it becomes better. It gets better, with every single post. And I think social media obviously has always been a real big part of the online community. Video is getting even stronger than before. I think,
Yes.
even since last year, they were already talking. In 2019, Gary Vee was talking about TikTok. And then here we are in 2021, and it's literally taking over Facebook and Instagram, really. But to me, the biggest things are just really to lean into the online community, to lean into your colleagues, to not be afraid, to ask questions, to not be afraid to try, and to really map out where you want to be and what that journey is going to look like for your customer. Because if you can know how you want that journey to be for your customer, then you can equally understand what you need to delegate, what you need support with, and how much work you need to do in order to be able to turn 1 into 3. Casa said that like 2 years ago, and it resonated with me. To be able to turn 1 file into 3 referrals. And that is something that I've really, really tried to accomplish. And I've been successful, but it is a lot of work. And I think we just need to not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to try, and not be afraid and just get out of our own way. Put our egos away and just go.
Agree. And it's so interesting to me. One time I was listening to someone speak about why people sometimes run into credit issues. And they put things into categories. And one category was that people just ignore, the notice comes and they see it and it's on their dining room table, but they want to just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that with planning for our businesses and our lives. Sometimes people think if I don't say I want my business to be here by this time or here by this time, well, then when I don't get there, I didn't lose, right? I didn't fail.
You are 100% accurate. I'll share with you, I'm in the 2020 Vision Training Program, and I had a mid-year checkup with one of my coaches. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm meeting my goals. And then he says, is that your goal? Just to meet it?
Oh.
And I was like, oh. But that's what we need. We need that plan, and we need that person that's going to, really push you and say, you can do more. And it's true. If we don't know what we're reaching for, if we're just, oblivious to what our potential is. And I think that's where, we are afraid to say, I want it all. And because of maybe being perceived differently or, whatever. And honestly, like in this industry, it's yes, fine, commissions. Okay. But the community that we can build and the service that we can give and the changes that we can make for people, hands down, the best part of this industry. It's really, it's, I think that's what we should always lead with that part of our heart, for sure.
It's the true impact, and you are right. And it's generations behind. It's not just that family. It's generations behind that you changed. You literally could change the whole trajectory for future generations that have not even been born yet by them becoming homeowners.
It's so true. And you see it day in and day out, especially, when you have cultural issues that stop people. And I deal with that all the time. And it's very in your face. And when you're able to show and say, you can do it, I'm going to show you how, let's get there together. And then all of a sudden we're there. And then it's like, let me have you talk to my cousin. Let me have you talk to my parents. Let me have you talk to my neighbors. So the impact is, it's definitely a trickle in, the bigger scheme of things, for sure.
Well, thank you, Mo, so much for sharing your insights, your perspectives. You are amazing as always. And yes, we all have the ability to make a difference in the world. Thank
Yes.
you. All
Thank
right.
you,
Well,
Laura.
thank you for sharing. And brokers, if you want to get caught up on our past Women's Growth series, please head over to AIME's YouTube channel and be sure to tune in next week with another amazing guest on the Women's Growth series. Thank you, everyone. Be well.